How does your council compare to all other councils in New South Wales? Hi, I'm Nathan Zampronio, one of your independent Hawkesbury councillors. This is a common question and a fairly important one, especially when incorrect data circulates widely through the community. The New South Wales Office of Local Government has collected a lot of statistics, and there are separate spreadsheets going all the way back to 1995 that covers every council in the state. The problem is that this data is a mess. Not every question was asked every year. Units have changed. There are 128 councils in New South Wales at the moment, but over 30 years, some have changed their names, some have amalgamated, some have ceased to exist, and nothing is correlated consistently. Well, I'm a school teacher, and data visualization is something I'm teaching my students right now. So I crunch the data, and I've put it up as a web page. You'll love it. So what do you need to know? Well, firstly, to find it, go to my website, councillorsampronio.info. 2, this works best on a desktop browser. If you try this on your phone, the experience will not be as good. By default, it is set to highlight the comparison to other New South Wales councils with Hawkesbury City Council. If you're from elsewhere, welcome. Just choose yours in the menu. That selection just makes the line for the focus council thicker. Because it's not fun to look at a graph with 128 different traces, you can also choose which councils you're comparing against. And I've grouped them as metropolitan, rural, regional, and so forth. You can even turn on whole groups if you want. And what does the data teach us? Well, this default view shows how average residential rates have changed over the last 30 years. These default lines are the councils that are most like the Hawkesbury, including our near neighbours and demographic peers. For over 30 years, Hawkesbury has been a middle-of-the-pack council in terms of our rates. But let's just sharpen that distinction by highlighting our nearest neighbours. Let's say Blue Mountains, Hillshire, Hornsby, Penrith, and a demographic peer like Wallandilly. Look, not the most expensive, not the cheapest, but the dashed line at the side here projects into the future and shows the effects of the recently passed 39.4% rate rise in the Hawkesbury. Now, this assumes that IPART will approve that rise. It also assumes that other councils are granted the rate peg over the same time frame. You can see that Hawkesbury Council's average rates compared to our peers will become among the most expensive. And of course, as I've been saying for years, some people are paying disproportionately more than even that average. Here's another feature. If you want to account for inflation and present all of that graph data in 2025 dollar amounts, tick this box. I've calculated the adjustments caused by inflation. When this option is engaged, if a line is flat, it means that the real-world costs have not risen in real terms of your wage or purchasing power. Yet again, if you think that council rates have become objectively more expensive over time, you're not wrong. From 2000 to 2017, Hawkesbury rates versus inflation was relatively flat. Starting with the SRV of 2017, Hawkesbury rates have become more expensive in real terms, even when accounting for inflation. And the new SRV has us accelerating towards the top of the leaderboard, second only to Hunters Hill, where, I might mention, the median income is 72% higher than it is in the Hawkesbury. Here are some other things that we learn when you play with the options. Hawkesbury has a relatively high debt delinquency rate. That's people who are overdue on paying their rates to council. It's one measure of financial stress. When you compare the number of staff employed by Hawkesbury Council to the size of its population, we are very comparable to our peers. This suggests that our council is not oversized. Hawkesbury Council's governance costs as a percentage of all council expenditure, in other words, what our admin overhead is to run the council, is relatively low. And our debt service ratio, the proportion of our income that we need to service our borrowings, is comparable to our peers. By these measures, the data says that Hawkesbury Council's operations are fairly efficient, despite what you read in the local paper. We are close to topping the list of complaints made against councillors. In our case, that's largely because of one person, but at least we aren't Cumberland, which is a den of ill feeling and litigation. The aggregate total of the fees that we pay our mayor and councillors in the Hawkesbury is modest compared to our peers and has barely changed in real terms over the last 10 years. In terms of unemployment, Hawkesbury is in the middle of the pack. Here is the total dollar value of developments approved. We are towards the lower end compared to our peers, but this is understandable since we don't have the same growth precincts as Hills, Blacktown, or elsewhere. Look, this is an exercise. It uses official data, but it is not an official project. Sometimes the numbers make graphs that look like spaghetti and they make no sense. This could be because units are wrong or the metric is one where comparisons between councils just don't work like that. I have taken the best care that I can, given that there were over 400,000 data points, and this was just designed to be a fun coding exercise. But in conclusion, after 9 years on council, one of the things that I've learned, it is too easy to be swayed by cheap and ill-informed opinion. But good data and good data visualisations are ways in which public debates about your council can be better informed, more factual, and more reflective of the changing landscape of New South Wales councils over a 30-year period. Please reward people who are making an effort to govern accountably by liking, sharing, and subscribing this content. Thanks for watching.